Beginning and end of the path. Samadhi is translated as right view or correct view. On a mundane level, this refers to seeing things in accord with the teachings on truth, Dhamma. On a transcendent level, this refers to seeing things directly in accord with truth, according to reality or to the law of conditionality. Seeing things or even believing in things in accord with Dhamma teachings. For example, believing that by doing good one will receive good, and by doing evil one will receive evil, is enough to begin Dhamma practice. By having such views and beliefs, one is ready for practice and one begins the first stage of training in virtuous conduct. A person who possesses only this level of right view, however, tends to give great emphasis to the practice of morality and often does not advance to stages of concentration and wisdom. In the scriptures, mundane right view is often presented in the teachings on righteous conduct, Dhammacharya, and the 10 wholesome courses of action, Kusala, Kamma, Patta, which are ways of practicing the Eightfold Path on an ordinary, everyday level. The teaching on the Four Noble Truths presents a somewhat broader definition of Samadhi. Although it does not refer specifically to right view, it corresponds with the practice of the Eightfold Path in its entirety. A basic understanding of the Four Noble Truths, of the nature of human problems, of the causes to these problems, of the goal, and of the way of practice is a foundation for commencing Dhamma practice. This is similar to the knowledge mentioned earlier, to know where one is going, to know which path will lead one to this end, and to know where this path begins. The most comprehensive definition of right view is knowledge of the truth, to see things as they truly are, and to see how things exist according to causes and conditions. This definition encompasses all the previous definitions, including to see the nature of human problems, to see the conditions giving rise to these problems, and to see the nature of the path. This definition highlights the clear development of right view, or understanding, along the entire stretch of the path. The more one practices, the more one knows, until one completes the practice and knows all that is essential to know. Right view is thus the starting point, or the leading factor for practice along the middle way. It is the principal path factor, playing a role at all stages of spiritual practice. In the development of the path, however, right view is not only a prerequisite or support for other path factors. Right view itself is supported by other factors. The further one progresses on the path, the more right view is nourished, strengthened, and purified. Finally, right view becomes the key agent leading to the goal of the path. And thus it is possible to say that right view is both the beginning and the end of the path. The fact that right view gradually unfolds and deepens during the course of the path reveals that the quality of right view varies during different stages of practice. The quality of right view at the start of the path differs from that of right view at the culmination of the path. Right view at different stages of the path may have specific attributes which are distinct from general definitions of right view. Right view at the beginning of the path is incomplete and may not correspond to the full definition of Samadhi. Similarly, right view at the end of the path has unique attributes, so that it should be referred to by another word. In these circumstances, it is useful to distinguish different Pali terms. Because right view is an aspect of wisdom, an appropriate general or collective term to be used here is panya, which refers to wisdom that has been gradually cultivated by practicing on the path. At each important stage of practice, wisdom has unique attributes and is referred to by special terms, as will be discussed below. According to the middle way, it is possible to present an outline of wisdom development as follows. For the average person whose learning depends on the advice and teachings of others, spiritual training will begin with some form of belief, which in Buddhism is referred to as faith, saddha. This faith may be a belief in the basic rationality of a particular teaching, a general belief in logical analysis, or a confidence in the reasoned presentation by a teacher. From this point on, students receive teachings, listen, study, and train. This results in increased understanding and reasoned discernment with the students themselves, which is broadly referred to as samadhi. When this understanding gradually grows and becomes more clear through engagement or through experience, so that it becomes a realization, wisdom has been developed to the stage of right knowledge, samayana. This stage transcends all forms of belief, saddha, and reasoned opinion, diti. This is the final stage, which reaches the goal, liberation, which is referred to as right deliverance, samavimutti. Wisdom development can be illustrated thus: faith, saddha, to right view, samadhi, to right knowledge, samayana, to right deliverance, samavimutti. Following this process, at the beginning, wisdom exists in a latent form, or as an accessory to faith. Wisdom then gradually develops on its own until it becomes right knowledge, at which stage it is pure and outstanding. Here, faith no longer exists because it has been completely replaced by wisdom. Only at this stage is awakening or liberation possible. This process will be described in more detail in subsequent chapters. Note that the faith participating in this process is a faith conducive to wisdom or leading to wisdom. The path or belief must be accompanied by wisdom or be based upon reasoned discernment. Akaravati Sada or Sadayana Sampayuta. It does not refer to faith in which one blindly entrusts oneself to do something without needing to apply reasoned contemplation. Amulika Sada or Sadayana Vipayuta. In any case, it is not adequate to view wisdom development or the development of right view as beginning solely by way of faith. Indeed, technically speaking, there are exceptional persons who are able to cultivate wisdom without relying on faith in others. They rely entirely on wise reflection, yoniso manasikara, the ability to see things as they truly are and according to causes and conditions, until they develop wisdom to the stage of penetrative insight into truth. Likewise, the wisdom development of ordinary people who begin with faith relies on their ability to apply wise reflection. Transcendent wisdom in particular, which fathoms the truth and completely dispels mental impurity, is unable to arise without wise reflection. Correct, desirable faith is linked to or activates wise reflection. Therefore, the complete process should be illustrated thus. Faith to wise reflection, to right view, to right knowledge, to right liberation. In sum, there are two factors giving rise to right view. First is faith, sada, which refers to trust in or a reliance on the wisdom of others. It arises as a response to the teachings of other people, and it marks the beginning of spiritual practice by way of external conditions. Second is wise reflection, yoniso manasikara, which refers to an ability to think for oneself or to think correctly. It marks the beginning of spiritual practice by way of internal conditions. The term sada does not refer directly to the source of a person's understanding, but is rather an internal spiritual quality, connecting a person to external factors. The real external source of understanding is other people, who influence one's beliefs, or the teachings of others, which in Buddhism is referred to as the instruction by others, parato gosa. Besides helping to generate faith and acting as an indirect method for establishing right view, the instruction by others can be a direct impetus for applying wise reflection. For this reason, the scriptures present two sources or factors for a right view: the external factor of the words of others, parato gosa, and the internal factor of wise reflection, yoniso manasikara. Buddhism gives great emphasis to right view because people, including Buddhists themselves, generally do not give this path factor sufficient attention. Even when they do recognize its importance, people often just give it lip service without going any further. For this reason, it is necessary to remind people to first acknowledge the importance of right view, and even more importantly, to find ways to generate it. Therefore, before discussing the various path factors in subsequent chapters, we wish to begin by describing at more length the conditions for right view. Appendix 1. Traditional definitions of the threefold training. A literal and orthodox translation of the threefold training is as follows. 1. Adi Sila Sika, training as higher virtue, forms of practice for training in supreme virtuous conduct. 2. Adi Chitta Sika, training as higher mind, forms of training the mind in order to generate supreme concentration. 3. Adi Panya Sika, training as higher wisdom, forms of training in wisdom in order to reach supreme levels of realization. In the Pali Canon, definitions for the threefold training are presented solely in reference to the bhikkhus. Here, Adi Sila Sika refers to restraint in accord with the monastic code of discipline, Pati Mokha Samvarasila. Adi Chitta Sika refers to the four jhanas, and Adi Panya Sika refers to either knowledge of the Four Noble Truths or to realization of liberation of mind, Ceto Vimutti, and liberation by wisdom, Panya Vimutti. The Nidesa expands this definition slightly. The Patisambhidamagga broadens this definition, defining Adi Sila as restraint, samvara, Adi Chitta as non-distraction, and Adi Panya as right view or right understanding. The Sadika claims that the threefold training does not simply refer to the 5 or 10 precepts, the 8 concentrative attainments, or the understanding conforming to the law of karma, of reaping what one sows, because these levels of morality, concentration, and wisdom are taught irrespective of whether a Buddha comes into the world or not. Rather, the threefold training refers exclusively to the virtue, concentration, and wisdom accompanying the appearance of a Buddha, i.e., Adisila, equals restraint in accord with the monastic code of discipline. Adicitta equals the mind possessed of the 8 concentrative attainments, which act as a basis for insight, and Adipanya equals insight knowledge, Vipassana Jnana, which is able to discern the 3 characteristics. In the highest sense, the commentaries say that the threefold training refers to transcendent virtue, concentration, and wisdom, but this definition can only be applied in limited contexts. Occasionally, they relax the definition, stating that Adisila refers to the moral conduct, either the 5 or 10 precepts undertaken by someone who aims for nibbana, and Adicitta refers to the 8 concentrative attainments. In regard to the passages in which the Buddha speaks about higher virtue for lay people, the commentaries say that this refers to the 5 or 10 precepts. Sometimes the prefix adi simply means better or higher when comparing 2 things. For example, the 10 precepts are adisila in comparison to the 5 precepts, and the fine material mind, rupa vachara citta, is adicitta in comparison to the sense sphere mind, kama vachara citta. In essence, the threefold training refers to virtuous conduct, concentration, and wisdom, which are practiced correctly according to the Buddhist teachings and are conducive to advancing in spiritual practice. The commentaries often describe the threefold training in the context of various stages of abandoning mental defilement. 1. Sila is equivalent to vitti karma pahana. Moral conduct is a means of abandoning coarse defilements, which are the cause for transgressions, by way of body and speech, vitti karma kilesa. 2. Samadhi is equivalent to pariyuttana pahana. Concentration is a means of abandoning intermediate defilements, which besiege the mind, pariyuttana kilesa. Some commentators state that this refers to the 5 hindrances. 3. Panya is equivalent to anusaya pahana. Wisdom is a means of abandoning refined defilements, which lie hidden in one's innate character, santana, waiting to manifest when conditions activate them, anusaya kilesa. This refers to the 7 latent tendencies, anusaya. Further definitions for the threefold training include sila equals abandonment by substitution of opposites, tadanga pahana. Samadhi equals abandonment by suppression, vikambhana pahana. And panya equals abandonment by cutting off, samucheda pahana. And sila is a way of abandoning immoral conduct. Samadhi is a way of abandoning craving, tanha, and panya is a way of abandoning fixed views, diti. The path factors were arranged into 3 trainings in a similar way that they are arranged into the 3 bodies of doctrine. Dhammakanda. Appendix 2, Two Extremes. A passage from the Anguttara Nikaya defines Kama Sukalika Yoga as Atgalapatipada, rough path, coarse path, referring to those people who believe that there is no harm in sensuality and who immerse themselves in sense pleasures. It defines Atta Kilamatu Yoga as Nijama Patipada, scorching path, parched path, refers to the practices of the naked ascetics, Esilakas. They should be considered merely as one example. It defines the middle way, Majjhima Patipada, as any of the groups of spiritual qualities contained in the 37 factors of enlightenment. Bodhipakkiyadhamma, the four foundations of mindfulness, the four right efforts, the four roads to success, the five faculties, the five powers, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and the Eightfold Path. The Udana contains this passage. Those who set chief value to study, to moral conduct, to religious rituals, to earning a living, to keeping the holy life, and to pleasing the devas. This is one extreme. This is one extreme. And those who hold the belief that there is no harm in sensuality, this is the other extreme. These two extremes increase ignorance and craving, which in turn increase fixed views. Those who do not understand these two extremes, one group gets bogged down, the other overreaches. Those who understand these two extremes do not get caught up in them, and they are not conceited due to this non-attachment. For these there is no round of rebirth to be declared. The commentaries define earning a living as living as an ascetic, and they equate Atta Kilamata Yoga with an adherence to precepts on religious practices, Sila Bhatta Paramasa.